Scientists are issuing a sobering warning that the United States West Coast faces the very real possibility of a catastrophic tsunami triggered by a massive earthquake. According to researchers, this event is not a question of if, but when. The threat stems from the Cascadia Subduction Zone, a colossal fault line stretching roughly 700 miles from Northern California to British Columbia. This fault has been quiet for more than 300 years, and experts now believe it is primed to unleash an enormous seismic event. What makes the situation even more concerning is that rising sea levels could amplify the destruction, leading scientists to state, quite paradoxically, that the sooner the tsunami arrives, the better. The Cascadia Subduction Zone is one of the most potentially dangerous geological features in North America. Scientists believe that a massive earthquake with a magnitude between 8.0 and 9.0 could rupture at any time along this fault. Such an earthquake would not only rattle the Pacific Northwest, but also generate a tsunami that could send waves as high as 100 feet racing toward the coast. These waves could decimate communities, floodplains, and infrastructure along the shores of California, Oregon, Washington, and into parts of Canada. According to a recent study published in the journal Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, the impact of this future tsunami could be significantly worsened by rising sea levels. The study's lead author, Tina Dura, emphasized that the consequences would be catastrophic. Her findings show that by the year 2100, the combination of tectonic subsidence and sea level rise could more than triple the number of residents, buildings, and roadways exposed to tsunami flooding. Dura remarked that the longer the earthquake is delayed, the more sea levels will rise, resulting in an even greater swath of land being consumed when the wave ultimately strikes. In an interview with BBC Science Focus, Dura explained the mechanics of this threat. She said the earthquake would likely cause substantial subsidence, pulling the coastal land downward by as much as 6 to 8 feet in some areas. Once the tsunami rushes inland and eventually recedes, the land will remain at these lower elevations, leaving large areas of the coastline permanently altered. This isn't simply a matter of cleanup and rebuilding. It is a long-term transformation that could affect these communities for decades, if not centuries. The statistical likelihood of such an earthquake striking within the next 50 years is approximately 37%, according to the researchers. However, by the end of this century, the odds increase drastically. The last time the Cascadia Subduction Zone experienced a full margin rupture was on the 26th of January in the year 1700. That event generated a massive tsunami that traveled across the Pacific Ocean and even reached the coast of Japan. Historical records from British Columbia mention the complete destruction of a village at Pachena Bay, providing some of the few eyewitness accounts of that ancient disaster. What makes the recent findings even more compelling is the data collected and analyzed by organizations such as the Federal Emergency Management Agency. The Federal Emergency Management Agency estimates that a major earthquake in the region, followed by a resulting tsunami, could lead to more than 5,800 casualties from the quake itself and an additional 8,000 from the tsunami. This kind of loss is staggering, but scientists argue that public awareness, preparedness, and infrastructure improvements could significantly reduce the risk. Oddly enough, despite the horrific toll predicted in such models, some experts say it would be better if the earthquake and tsunami occurred sooner rather than later. This viewpoint is based on the understanding that sea levels are continuing to rise due to our changing world. The longer the earthquake is delayed, the higher the seas will be when it finally happens. This increased baseline height means the tsunami will reach further inland, flood more areas, and affect a larger population. From a scientific and disaster mitigation standpoint, facing the event earlier could result in less widespread damage than if it occurs decades into the future. In practical terms, this means coastal communities from Northern California to British Columbia are at serious risk. Entire towns along the coasts of Oregon and Washington could be submerged under walls of water. Infrastructure such as highways, hospitals, and schools located in low-lying areas would be overwhelmed. Emergency response efforts would be complicated by blocked roads and widespread displacement. The economic cost, not to mention the emotional and social toll, would be staggering. To further compound the challenge, scientists say many communities along the West Coast are not adequately prepared for an event of this scale. While tsunami awareness campaigns have been initiated and warning systems have been installed in some areas, many towns still lack evacuation routes, vertical shelters, or up-to-date risk assessments. In addition, the recent modelling that accounts for rising sea levels has only begun to reshape how planners think about these hazards. There is a growing consensus that action must be taken now, not just in terms of public education, but in building resilient infrastructure capable of withstanding such an event. One of the unique characteristics of the Cascadia Subduction Zone is that it does not rupture with small, warning quakes leading up to the major event. Unlike faults such as the San Andreas, which frequently release tension in smaller tremors, Cascadia is known for locking in place for centuries before releasing its full power in one enormous quake. This makes forecasting especially difficult and emphasizes the importance of readiness even in the absence of warning signs. Scientists like Tina Dura are urging lawmakers, emergency managers, and the public to treat this threat with the urgency it deserves. The technology exists to model these risks more accurately than ever before. The data is clear. What remains is the will to act on that information in a timely way. Ron Wyatt, an amateur archaeologist and adventurer, garnered significant attention in the 1970s and 1980s with his claims of discovering biblical artifacts. Among his most controversial and intriguing claims was the discovery of a chariot wheel in the depths of the Red Sea. Wyatt asserted that this finding provided tangible evidence supporting the biblical story of the Exodus, where Moses led the Israelites out of Egypt, parting the Red Sea and allowing them to escape Pharaoh's army, which perished in the returning waters. A significant portion of this rumor stems from the research conducted by Ron Wyatt, an eccentric and contentious amateur archaeologist who claimed to have located the biblical Ark of the Covenant, Noah's Ark, the Tower of Babel, the true location of Mount Sinai, the true site of Jesus' crucifixion, and the original stones of the Ten Commandments. His fans claimed that he was an honest and passionate man, but there are many who disagreed with him. Scientists and archaeologists at the time considered him to be an inexperienced maverick at best. Because the location of Nuweiba in Egypt seemed to match some of the descriptions of biblical and historical reports of the geography, Wyatt's interest in the Hebrews' Red Sea crossing became concentrated there. He claimed to have discovered what he believed to be chariot components while diving off the beach in Nuweiba. In 1978, on his first visit to Nuweiba, he discovered a massive column on the shore that appeared to be an old relic. Subsequently, he discovered that it had been assembled in concrete for exhibition by Egyptian officials. He thought it was a monument that King Solomon had erected to commemorate the Red Sea passage. Wyatt claimed to have discovered what he believed to be the remains of chariot wheels and chariots at the bottom of the ocean during that very voyage in 1978. There was a lot of coral covering them. Wyatt stated that he had recovered one of the wheels and that an Egyptian official had proclaimed it to be from the 18th dynasty of ancient Egypt. However, no one appears to be aware of the current whereabouts of that chariot wheel. News outlets interviewed Aaron Sen, a visitor to Nuweiba who discovered the human bones at the location. He added that Professor Lennart Moller, who taught at Stockholm University in the late 1990s, was in possession of the bones, which had been verified as human remains. Additionally, it was found that there appeared to be an underwater bridge that connected the two sides of the sea, with the seabed on one side being shallower than the depths on the other. According to Wyatt, there might have been the location where the waters broke and allowed the Hebrews to pass. Other explorers have visited the location as a result of Wyatt's attention on Nuweiba and his assertions that chariot remnants are on the ocean floor, but even Wyatt's followers advise caution over their ecstatic discoveries. Journalist Joe Kovach was informed by Richard Rives, president of Tennessee's Wyatt Archaeological Research, that all kinds of people are finding coral and calling it chariot parts. The same thing Mary Nell, Wyatt's wife, told Kovach. She claimed that when she first went diving at the Red Sea site with Wyatt, she initially believed everything to be a chariot wheel. In summary, all that appears to be available at this time to bolster the claims of chariot components on the Red Sea floor are images, the most of which feature coral formations. There are still unanswered questions regarding the site, because no documented artifacts have been removed and preserved from there, and the Egyptian government forbids any discoveries from being made public. Although this tale is frequently credited to a 2014 news website, it would seem to predate the Plainly piece because Ron Wyatt appears to have made this claim in print at least as early as 1993 and passed away in 1999. To assess the legitimacy of their statements, one need just look to their original source. The strongest evidence comes from a single grainy shot of a wheel that, in many people's opinion, is strangely well preserved for its alleged antiquity and looks a lot like a chariot wheel used in building. His claim that the wheel's 4 spokes date it to the right region and that the shiny areas are the remains of a gold veneer serve as proof that it originated as an Egyptian chariot wheel. It's pretty telling that these assertions are largely disregarded elsewhere and only appear in publications that are blatantly biased. In the biblical narrative, the Exodus is one of the most dramatic and significant events described in the book of Exodus. According to the story, Moses, under divine guidance, led the Israelites out of Egyptian bondage. When they reached the Red Sea, Moses parted the waters, creating a path for the Israelites to cross. The pursuing Egyptian army, led by Pharaoh, followed but was engulfed by the returning waters, resulting in their destruction. Ron Wyatt, who was deeply inspired by biblical archeology, undertook several expeditions to the Middle East to search for evidence of this and other biblical events. Wyatt claimed to have discovered chariot wheels and asserted that these findings were remnants of the Egyptian chariots destroyed during the Exodus. Wyatt's most notable discovery was a coral-encrusted object he identified as a chariot wheel. According to his account, this object was located during a diving expedition. Wyatt provided photographs of the wheel-shaped object, which he claimed matched the design of ancient Egyptian chariot wheels. Additionally, he reported finding other artifacts, such as human and horse bones, further supporting his interpretation. One of the primary criticisms of Wyatt's work is the lack of peer-reviewed evidence. Archaeological discoveries are typically subjected to rigorous scrutiny and verification by experts in the field. Wyatt's findings have not been published in reputable scientific journals or subjected to independent verification, making it difficult to assess their validity. While Wyatt's methods and conclusions may be disputed, his work has inspired further exploration and interest in the regions associated with biblical narratives. Subsequent expeditions by professional archaeologists have continued to investigate the potential historical basis for the Exodus story. Although definitive proof remains elusive, the search for evidence continues to yield valuable insights into the ancient cultures and histories of the Middle East. Scientists reveal they found evidence of pottery and prehistoric human activity at a possible Noah's Ark location. While it's not exactly proof, researchers have managed to confirm the presence of ancient human activity and pottery at a distant spot in eastern Turkey that some have speculated may be Noah's Ark landing site. While further analysis is needed, the project at the Durupinar Formation, a distinctive boat-shaped geological formation that has attracted attention since its discovery in 1959, has uncovered new findings that may point to the earliest known instances of the clay firing method used to create pottery. Researchers from Agri Ibrahim Seykan University, Istanbul Technical University, and Andrew University, a private Seventh-day Adventist university in Michigan, announced the findings of their most recent investigations conducted at the formation at a conference held in October at Istanbul Technical University. When the crew visited the location in December 2022, they used ground-penetrating radar and discovered underground layers and intriguing angular structures, which are features that are not typically associated with natural geological formations. Professor Faruk Kaki revealed the results and stated that preliminary analysis of more than 24 rock and soil samples may indicate signs of human activity at the location around 5,000 years ago. The ancient items, according to Kaki, demonstrate a sophisticated understanding of the process of creating clay. He stated in his presentation that they saw that these ceramic pieces weren't produced entirely of clay when they looked at their structural makeup. They were polygenic, meaning they were made up of rocks from many origins, sand, silt, and small and large fine clay grains, as well as grains that were nearly the size of gravel. This demonstrates how old the artifacts are. This indicates a long history of work at this location. They were created by locally burning clay, Although the team has mainly focused on conducting an initial archaeological surface survey by walking around the site in search of pottery and collecting soil and rock samples, more work is anticipated in the form of geophysical surveys, core drilling, and possibly even limited form of excavations. The dimensions of the ark described in the Book of Genesis, which are 300 cubits by 50 cubits by 30 cubits, or 164 yards by 27 yards by 16 yards, or 150 meters by 25 meters by 15 meters, are cited by proponents of the ark theory in addition to the formation's boat shape. Both secular and Christian scientists have dismissed the potentially significant discovery. Ken Ham stated in a post from October 2021 that there had been conjecture since 1959 over the location of Noah's Ark at the Durupinar Formation site. The director of Answers in Genesis's research department, geologist Andrew Snelling, made assertions that Ham incorporated in his piece. Snelling believes it is unlikely that the Ark has endured this long. In the meantime, a geologist from California State University published a report labeling the biblical connection as false, claiming the region was just a rock formation and not an old boat. The Durupinar Formation was first the subject of research study in 2021, although a Turkish army captain had found the place back in 1959. Thanks to the efforts of American explorer Ron Wyatt and others, the site became the subject of scholarly interest in the 1970s and continued until the mid-1990s. A team of scientists claim they found old wood inside the real Noah's Ark. The Durupinar site has long fascinated academics because of its connection to Noah's Ark, which is said to represent the biblical ship's final resting place. Upon viewing the images, believers perceived them as the definitive proof they had been looking for, confirming the existence of a boat-shaped building tucked away on this mountain. Strong evidence that the aforementioned relics were, in fact, a component of a massive ancient boat has been reported by a group of committed researchers, adding to the significance of this amazing discovery. A combined team of experts from China and Turkey made an incredible statement on April 20, 2010, during a major press conference in Hong Kong. On top of a mountain, they found what is thought to be Noah's Ark. Religious communities, who had long held the belief that the Ark was located within these mountains, responded overwhelmingly to this astounding news. These results, which have been confirmed by the hard work of the research team, give people concrete proof that supports their ideas, satisfying their long-standing need for evidence. The enormity of this finding has caused great enthusiasm and a global revival of faith among believers. When the images were released, many people were shocked to see that there appeared to be large wooden structures. Many people were surprised and intrigued when the photos were made public. Large wooden constructions were noticeably absent from the photos, which begged several issues. A particular scientist provided an intriguing analysis of the discovery, expressing both his scientific skepticism and his fascination with the possibility that the remains of Noah's Ark had been found. In the interrogation with the scientists, the group boldly declared that they had painstakingly completed every necessary experiment to reach their conclusion. As part of their investigation, they particularly acknowledged using radiocarbon dating techniques on a few wood samples. Renowned researcher Wing Chung voiced his surprise at the finding by asking how a ship could possibly be discovered on a mountain. He said that the biblical story of Noah's Ark is connected to the sole known wooden building on Mount Ararat based on historical sources. With this knowledge, Wing Chung is certain that there is a very high chance that the new discovery is Noah's Ark. He stressed that there isn't yet a competing theory to support this theory. As to the team's report, not only are the researchers persuaded by their discoveries, but Turkish government officials also recognize and support the team's claims about the existence of Noah's Ark. Furthermore, these authorities have stated that they think the location in question is, in fact, the historic vessel's ultimate resting place. The research team continues by stating that they have done further investigation to support their assertions. For example, they collected wood samples from the location and used carbon dating to determine their age, which came out to be an astounding 4,800 years. They have also invited other scientists to analyze the results directly in order to bolster the validity of their research. It's important to remember that certain experts and researchers do not believe that the discovered structure is the real Noah's Ark, despite the majority of experts and academics expressing their support for this belief. Some doubters contend that certain tests cannot provide strong evidence for the structure's genesis. Furthermore, a certain scientist has questioned the validity of radiocarbon dating and demanded that more research be done to guarantee accuracy. Some others have gone so far as to cast doubt on the expedition's legitimacy altogether, speculating that it might have been staged. A research article titled "Exploration Team Successfully Ventures Inside 4,800-Year-Old Wooden Structures" was published by the team conducting the exploration in spite of the skepticism voiced by certain scientists. The team's trust in the importance of their findings is demonstrated by their publication, which has the backing of Turkish officials and subject matter experts who adamantly maintain that the found artifact is Noah's Ark. There is a popular assumption among religious people right now that the spot we are talking about is where Noah's Ark is ultimately resting. On the other hand, fascinating arguments have been put out by scientists that seriously refute the idea that this is the real Ark. It's crucial to remember, though, that scientists do not completely reject some aspects of the narrative. Among the least visited regions of the planet, mountains have drawn the attention of a wide range of individuals. While some are drawn to the mysteries that sit atop these majestic natural structures, others are eager to conquer them. Fascinating recent finds by underwater archaeologists clearly suggest that many cities were submerged. Remains of ancient civilizations that date back to Noah's time have been discovered in one specific site, which is off the coast of Turkey. The fact that there are numerous stories from diverse civilizations mentioning a large-scale deluge, some even having written records describing the event, makes this even more fascinating. Notably, some scientists do not deny that such an event occurred, but they suggest that the extent of it might have been overstated. For example, historical evidence points to a spike in water levels in the region about 7,000 years ago, which suggests that the so-called Great Flood may have resulted from the flooding of the Black Sea. Given the recent discovery of multiple ancient underwater cities, it is imperative that scientists recognize the existence of a cataclysmic event that caused the submersion of cities. The precise scale of this event is still up for discussion among specialists. Both scholars and the general public are still enthralled with the Durupinar site. Though the evidence is still unclear, the site remains a focal point for conversations regarding the relationship between science, history, and faith.